welcome to my channel. As it's such a lovely autumn day and the leaves are really starting to turn now, they're actually starting to come off because it's incredibly windy. We've got Storm Ophelia just arriving here in Cumbria at the moment. I thought we would go through the nice colours to use in Brusho for some autumn leaves and some autumn colour. So I've picked out orange, Sandstone, burnt sienna, Sunburst lemon and dark brown. So I'll just pop those to one side. You can see some of that's come off the tub onto there, but it doesn't really matter. And then to draw a tree, I'm just going to use the Daler Rowney Acrylic ink. So this is water fast and permanent. Now this is an SAA practice paper, £140, and I've just taped it down at the corners. So to begin with, I was just going to do some very loose tree shapes using the ink, and I'm actually going to draw with the top of the bottle. And I'm just looking out of the window to get a few ideas of tree shapes, but very abstract and loose. I think the one I'm looking at is a sycamore. You know, they have that very distinctive little flick up at the end. And by using the dibber, you're going to get lots of different shapes in your lines. You're going to get some thick bits and some thin bits, and that's going to look like it's the light on the tree, or where you've got some more twiggy branches. So some coming down as well, some going away from you, crossing over. Try and vary them a bit. And let's anchor it to the ground a bit more as well. Maybe take it out a bit more. But don't spend ages fretting about the tree, because you're going to be putting lots of Brusho on the top of it in a minute and adding lots of colour. So that's just a little bit of a skeleton there for you to add to. And I'll just indicate a bit of a fence as well, maybe going away into the distance. And maybe another tree further up, a smaller one. Make this slightly different shape, make this one a bit more of a bushy tree. And there might be some bits of shrubs growing in the hedge as well. Okay, so I'm doing this in real time, not pausing it at all, just going to carry on with it just to show you how quickly you can work using these techniques with ink and a touch of water and a touch of Brusho. We'll make that land come back down that way a bit and just add a few imaginary lines to this landscape. Perhaps there's some hills in the distance, maybe a tree line further up. Okay, so we've got that trees there, and that is still wet. And whilst that is still wet, and you've got to do this very gently, but you've also got to be quite brave with this because you can make a real mess of it. See where the ink is here? That can really bleed out. So with your spray, hold your spray really high up and just give it a very gentle spray all over, and some of that ink will start to move, and you can see some colour there, and that's what was on the pots before. And now it's all wet, or wet in places where we've sprayed, and I'm just going to get each colour, put a tiny bit on the end of my brush. Now this brush is a very soft, fluffy brush, and it's always kept very dry. I never use it for anything wet, so this brush is always kept dry. And you see, as you put it on, it also mixes with the ink as well as mixing with the water. So I'm going to put it in the area of the two trees, but I'm also going to put a bit of a line up here as if we've got, you know, some trees off in the distance. All the way along the horizon there. So did I say this was the orange? So this is the orange we've started with. More on this tree. Pop that one to one side. And then Sandstone, and this has actually got some very orangey colours in it, the Sandstone one. I think we need a bit more water on. So I'm just going to get my spray again. That's better. So Brusho is all about the amount of water that you use. That's where you're going to get your effects, is the amount of water, and that's where it can all go terribly wrong if you use too much. So it's really about practicing with it. And the thing about it is, one pot lasts forever and ever because you need such a small amount of powder that it will last you an awful long time. So having a practice and a play with it on some rough paper is a really good idea to get used to it and used to the amount of water that you're going to need. So this colour now is Burnt Sienna. So just using all of these colours that I thought were quite autumny. And what I'll do is I'll photograph it once it's dry, because the reason for putting it in the wet ink, you'll see it sort of mixes with it and makes these light and dark areas, so you've got a bit of light and shade going through your trees. And now this is the Sunburst lemon, so you can get just ordinary lemon or you can get this Sunburst one, and I really like this Sunburst one. And again, I'm going to put some of that in the ink in the trunk there, and you'll see how that, as it dries, moves in with the ink. Like I say, I'll let it dry and then photograph it and show you that at the end. So very quick, less than 5 minutes, or less than 10 minutes certainly. You've got a little autumny looking landscape. Just excuse me 1 minute. So something else that's useful when you have Brusho is to have a piece of card around like this. Just a rough piece of card, so that you can keep areas dry whilst you spray. So I want a bit more water on here, but I don't particularly want it underneath the tree. So I'm going to hold the card there just to gently spray, just to give a bit more weight to the bottom of those trees. That's better. So at this stage, what you want to do to get a bit more shaping, if you want, is just to get a brush and move some of it around. So a damp brush, I'm just going to make a few extra lines just to give a bit more structure to the painting. Perhaps some shadow coming off these two trees in this direction and off, so you can see how that ink's coming out. And again in this direction, just let it touch the ink in places, and then we're getting a bit of variety in tone as well there. But leave white paper as well, leave plenty of white paper, get some light bouncing around that landscape. Just a touch up here I think, but not lots. Those lovely red colours. Okay, so I think if we overdid it now, we would lose it and make a mess. One thing I'm just going to do is put a tiny bit of yellow down the bottom here. Imagine the sun shining on that foreground. You can see what a lovely colour that lemon is. That just brings the colour down to the base of the painting. And actually I'm going to put a touch more of that in the sky, as if we've got the sun up there coming through. Okay, so I'm going to leave it now to completely dry. So I don't think we used the brown, but I think that would probably have been too many colours. We don't need that. But I will list all the colours that I have used down below. So if you haven't got them and you want to give them a try, but just use what you've got at home. Just stick to your reds and your lemons and your browns. You might want to put a touch of a green in now and again. I'm not going to put any green in. I think I just like those autumny colours together as they are, without any of the green, and keeping it quite simple. So the main things to remember is just be very sparing with your water, be very cautious with it, and practice with your water before you do your finished picture. So get some rough paper, some old scraps of card or whatever, and have a play with the amount of ink, Brusho and water, because it's all about the volume of water. And it will depend on which paper you're using as well. If you're using a different paper to me, it may move out more quickly, or it may move less. So you just need to get to know it and have a play with it. So just have a practice and a play with what you've got. and enjoy just messing around with those colours and sprinkling them on and adding the water. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. I will put this picture at the end when it's dried, but for now, bye for now.